Hi guys. Tonight we ease into the kind of cold that makes your eyelashes stiffen. The kind of cold that tries to sneak down the back of your coat even when you think you have every button secured. You stand in the Arctic twilight, where the sun has vanished below the horizon for weeks, maybe months, and everything glows in deep blue. The snow does not crunch so much as it sighs under your boots. There is a strange calm in this frozen world. You feel your breath plume out in a soft cloud that hangs in the still air. Nothing moves except you, and the quiet is so complete that even the tiny sound of your glove brushing your coat feels loud. For a moment, you picture yourself attempting to survive this winter alone. Quick reality check: you probably will not survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If you want to help me travel to more strange places in history, drop your location and your local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, and let your mind follow this frozen path forward. You trudge across the packed snow, feeling how the world around you seems to hold its breath. Even the sky looks silent. The Arctic night is not an empty void. It shimmers with faint stars that appear sharper than you expect. Sometimes you catch a hint of green or purple drifting across the darkness as the aurora tests the horizon. The air smells faintly metallic and impossibly clean. Your fingertips grow colder even inside thick mittens. Each inhalation stings the inside of your nose. This is not a place that forgives carelessness. This is a place where a small mistake becomes a big story that ends too soon. Still, people have lived here for generations, and comfortably enough that sleep, family life, and warmth are not only possible but deeply rooted in tradition. A mainstream historical fact is that Inuit communities in many regions of the Arctic built winter homes from snow blocks that insulated better than many wooden structures of the same era. You stop for a moment to take this in. Snow, of all things, keeps people alive. You probably think of snow as something that melts on your glove and numbs your feet. Yet here, it becomes a shelter that turns deadly cold into something manageable. Another fact, although more on the fringes of popular knowledge, is that some families shaped small skylights from clear freshwater ice when conditions allowed. These acted like dim windows inside otherwise sealed homes. This quirky detail surprises anyone who imagines the igloo only as a solid dome. You can picture the subtle glow that such a block might allow to pass. A small shimmer of pale light over sleeping figures. Did it feel comforting? Did it feel eerie? Maybe a little of both. Historians still argue whether these skylights were widely used or simply rare improvisations suited to particular hunts or regions. Cold regions differ, and communities adapted in ways shaped by available ice, snow quality, and necessity. You will hear this kind of uncertainty again, because the Arctic preserves stories beautifully, yet also hides many under centuries of snowdrifts. As you continue your slow walk, the wind changes. It turns softer but colder. Colder in a way that slips between layers and tries to convince you that your jacket is nothing but decoration. The sensation makes you more aware of the journey you are taking. You think of families who cross this same terrain every winter, not for fun, not for exploration, but because their lives depended on understanding the land better than the land understood them. You step past gentle rises in the snow, each shaped by wind patterns that have repeated the same dance for centuries. You imagine sleds pulled by dogs, the runners hissing over the hard surface. You imagine people moving with an unhurried pace, confident, trained from childhood to notice every sign the world gives. These are not dramatic Hollywood scenes. These are real winter routines. You pull your hood tighter. The fur trim helps warm the thin layer of air around your face. A tiny detail, but essential. You remember reading that thick fur ruffs break the wind, creating a calm bubble of air that prevents frostbite. It makes sense now. The air beyond your hood feels like a threat. Inside the hood, it feels like a whispered promise. A question crosses your mind. How did families ever fall asleep in this world? Not just nap, but truly sleep. How did they relax enough to close their eyes when the temperature outside could drop to levels that seem almost alien? That is why you are here tonight. You want to know how they slept, how they found safety, how the architecture of survival became a place where children dreamed and adults restored their energy for the next day of hunting, preparing equipment, and teaching the youngest how to live in balance with the Arctic. Far ahead, barely visible, you notice a low shape rising from the snow, round, smooth, almost glowing in the faint starlight. The farther you walk, the more it reveals itself. An igloo. You recognize the iconic curve. It looks like a giant pearl half buried in white powder. There is something soft about it, despite being entirely formed from frozen water. You can almost hear the quiet breathing of the family inside. Warmth, laughter, nightly whispering, all tucked behind those carefully carved blocks. Your feet grow heavier with the thought of stepping inside, not from exhaustion but from anticipation. It is like approaching a secret, and you feel the gentle comfort of knowing that even in harsh places, humans have learned to make pockets of warmth that rival any modern bedroom. You adjust your steps as you draw nearer. The snow texture has changed. It feels denser, firmer. These are footprints that have been compressed by repeated crossings. This path has seen countless evenings, countless entries and exits under the drifting glow of moonlight. As you come close, something subtle captures your attention. The dome is not perfectly smooth. It carries a slight pattern, a spiral of overlapping blocks that climb toward the top. That spiral matters. It stabilizes the structure, keeps weight evenly distributed, and allows the dome to hold warmth inside. The engineering is astonishing, and it echoes a well-known fact among Arctic researchers. A properly built snow house is warmer inside than some heated cabins built by European explorers in earlier centuries. The air seems warmer already. Maybe it is the psychological trick of approaching shelter. Or maybe the igloo itself radiates a kind of presence that tells you that you are almost safe from the cold. You hear your heartbeat slow a little. Your shoulders finally start to relax. Somewhere above, the aurora flickers for a moment, as if to acknowledge your arrival. Its soft arc paints a faint green streak across the deep navy sky. Then the glow fades, as though it has slipped behind a curtain. You pause right before the entrance. The journey has led you here. Soon you will crawl through the narrow passage and step into the glowing interior. But for now, you stand in the quiet Arctic night, letting your breath form tiny clouds, letting your imagination settle. You feel the weight of the cold lifting slightly. Inside, a family sleeps, and you are about to learn exactly how they do it. You stand before the curved wall of the igloo, its surface shaped by hands that understood snow the way a carpenter understands grain. The first glimpse always feels surreal. You see nothing but white upon white. Yet there is an unmistakable presence in the structure. It rises out of the frozen ground like a quiet heartbeat of human life, the one warm note inside a season that often feels frozen in time. Your eyes adjust slowly. Even in the dim Arctic night, the igloo holds a soft glow created by starlight reflecting off its angled blocks. You take a slow breath that crystallizes in front of you, and you imagine the family inside breathing much warmer air. The contrast feels almost magical. You step closer. The dome looks both delicate and impossibly strong. You can see the intersecting pattern of each snow block, trimmed with a snow knife and shaped with practiced precision. There is no wasted movement in their construction. Inuit builders used exactly what the land offered, relying on compacted snow that had been hardened by wind. A mainstream historical fact is that densely packed snow contains countless tiny air pockets that trap heat, giving igloos remarkable insulating power. It still feels counterintuitive, does it not? The thing you associate with cold becomes the very thing that protects from it. As you study the design, you notice details that feel almost hidden. The dome is slightly egg-shaped rather than perfectly round. That subtle tilt helps redirect wind and limits drifting snow from piling up too heavily against one side. It also increases the strength of the structure by shifting weight downward in a smooth curve. Inuit builders were not working from architectural blueprints. They developed this knowledge through centuries of careful observation. You touch the surface gently with your mitten and feel how firm the snow has become. This is no fragile sculpture. This is a home built for survival. A fringe but fascinating fact whispers at the back of your mind. Some explorers in the 19th century noted that the best igloos sounded different when tapped. Skilled builders could judge block quality by the tone the snow made under a light knock. A hollow sound meant the snow was too soft. A tight, crisp note signaled dense, wind-packed material worth using. You imagine the quiet focus this required, listening for subtle differences while your hands were cold and the day was short. Historians still argue whether this sound-based assessment was universal or simply a technique used in specific regions or by certain families. Written accounts vary, and elders from different communities recall different traditions. Memory in the Arctic often flows like drifting snow, shifting with time, shaped by local conditions. What remains consistent is the deep respect for the materials available. You shift your weight and listen carefully. The world around you feels muffled, as though snow has wrapped itself around every sound. Even your footsteps are quiet now. There is something serene about approaching a structure so modest and yet so perfect for its purpose. You imagine the warmth inside, the glow of a small lamp, the steady breathing of children and elders, the soft rustle of fur bedding. Your gaze moves to the entrance. It is low and narrow, barely more than a crawl space. You see how its shape dips downward before rising into the main chamber. This creates a cold trap, keeping chilled air near the floor of the tunnel instead of allowing it to seep into the sleeping area. You cannot help admiring how clever this is. No fancy insulation, no generators, just a simple understanding of airflow that makes the inside far warmer than the outside. For a moment, you crouch to peek into the passage. A faint golden shimmer reflects off the smooth inner walls. The light comes from a quillic, the traditional oil lamp that burns with a quiet flame. Its glow turns the interior into a gentle amber cavity. You feel drawn in, like a moth to warmth rather than brightness. You straighten up again to take in the outer structure fully before you enter. Snowflakes from an earlier drift cling to tiny ridges between the blocks. The pattern they create makes the dome look like the shell of an ancient creature resting after a long migration. There is poetry in this place, a calm assurance that life continues because people adapt with grace. A slight breeze brushes your cheek and makes you pull your hood tighter. The trim of fur softens the bite of the cold. You imagine how many generations learned these tricks. Hold the hood close. Keep the face warm. Conserve breath. Move with intention. The Arctic has room for those who listen, and it pushes aside those who ignore its lessons. You glance upward toward the sky, almost expecting the aurora to flare again. Instead, you see only stars, sharp and confident in the deep night. The air smells faintly of snow, crisp and mineral-rich. You hear nothing, not even distant animal calls. Maybe a fox is out there somewhere, quietly stepping through powder as it hunts in the stillness. But here, near the igloo, the silence feels complete. The more you look at the structure, the more you appreciate the precision needed to create it. Each block must lock against the next at just the right angle. Each seam must be sealed with loose snow pressed into place with patience. You picture the builder working quickly, but with care. Cold hands, steady breath, tools made of bone or horn. The snow knife, shaped to cut perfect curves. The builder's mind calculating without numbers, using instinct and experience instead. You imagine how it must have felt to build with family. Children watching, adults stacking block after block, dogs dozing nearby, saving their strength for the next day's travel. The work was practical but also communal, a reminder that survival here was a shared task. No one faced the winter alone. Your eyes drift to the top of the dome. You notice a small opening near the peak, not wide enough for heat to escape easily, but just enough for ventilation. Without it, the interior would grow too damp. You picture the gentle movement of warm air rising and slipping through the tiny aperture, fresh air replacing it, a careful balance. a living system inside a frozen landscape. You take another slow breath and listen to the faint hum of wind over the surface of the igloo. The sound is soft, like distant whispering. It feels oddly comforting. The dome stands firm, resisting the cold without breaking the silence. You step back and look at the structure one last time before you begin your descent into the entrance tunnel. You feel the anticipation of warmth, the curiosity of seeing how families transform frozen architecture into a place for peaceful sleep. You sense that once inside, the night will feel different, gentler, smaller, safer. And as you place your hands near the tunnel to begin the crawl inward, you carry with you the understanding that what looks simple from the outside is the product of centuries of knowledge, creativity, and resilience. A white dome on a white landscape, glowing quietly, ready to welcome you into its heart. You lower yourself toward the narrow entrance tunnel, feeling the cold gather around your knees as you prepare to crawl. The opening looks almost too small for comfort, but that is exactly the point. You lean in, placing your gloved hands on the packed snow, and breathe in the faint chill that lingers just inside. Then you push forward, sliding into the dim passage that curves gently downward. The shape forces you to bow your head, to surrender a little pride before entering a pocket of warmth carved out of winter itself. Your breath echoes softly in the confined space. The walls glitter with tiny ice crystals that scatter the faint glow from within. You sense the air changing at once. Outside, the cold felt sharp and proud. In here, the cold feels heavy and waiting, as though it knows it will soon lose its strength. The tunnel dips lower and then begins to rise again, creating a cold trap below the main chamber where frigid air settles harmlessly. This simple, clever design has helped families survive countless Arctic nights. You pause on your elbows for a moment, letting your eyes adjust to the amber light ahead. A well-known detail in Arctic studies is that many igloos were built with intentional height variation between the tunnel and the living area, a feature that keeps the warmest air exactly where families need it most. Lying here in the sloping passage, you can already feel that difference. The air brushing your cheeks is noticeably milder. The warmth is subtle but unmistakable, like the quiet exhale of a sleeping body. As you move forward, you notice a small indentation along the tunnel wall. Someone carved a niche here, perhaps for a storage bag, perhaps for tools. These tight spaces were often customized in ways outsiders never expect. One delightful, lesser-known detail shared by some elders recalls how kids sometimes left tiny carved snow toys inside these nooks, like secret companions waiting in the shadows. You picture a miniature snow figure tucked away, patiently guarding the passage until morning. Your knees press against the smooth snow as you crawl. The texture surprises you. It is not loose and powdery. Instead, it feels compressed and faintly warm from human activity. The builders likely shaped every contour of this tunnel with intention, smoothing it with their bare hands or the flat edge of a snow knife. You imagine those hands, quick and strong, working even as the daylight disappeared entirely. Arctic winter demanded resourcefulness, not hesitation. As you creep forward, you feel a gentle pulse of warmer airbrush along your face. It drifts down from the chamber ahead, carrying the faint scent of burning oil mixed with soft hints of fur bedding. Your body responds with an involuntary sigh. Warmth, even mild warmth, feels like a gift after the long walk outside. Once you reach the crest of the rise, the tunnel widens just enough for you to pull your torso up. You can see the main room now. Its curved interior glows with a golden bloom from the Quillic lamp resting on a carved shelf of snow. Shadows flutter softly across the walls. The chamber feels rounder and larger than you expected, like stepping into the inside of a pearl. The quiet hum of family life seems frozen mid-breath. You pause again before entering, not out of hesitation, but out of respect. This is a place of safety in a land that rarely offers comfort freely, and it feels almost sacred to climb from the cold trap into a warm world shaped entirely by human intention. Your thoughts wander to the shape of the entrance itself. The tunnel is long, narrow, and often positioned at an angle that deflects wind. Some accounts passed through oral tradition mention families purposely placing snow blocks in staggered patterns at the opening to break the gusts. But researchers still sometimes differ on how standardized these entry designs were across regions. Documentation from early European observers is inconsistent, and elders from different communities recall various practices adapted to local conditions. This uncertainty hovers like soft breath in the cold, reminding you that the Arctic is too vast for a single blueprint. You use your hands to lift yourself up the final incline, and your head emerges into the open chamber. A gentle wave of warmth washes over you. Not tropical warmth, but something human, lived in, shaped by breath and firelight. You plant your palm on the raised lip of the entrance and slide into the space with a quiet shuffle. The floor beneath you has been tamped flat and covered in layered skins. Your knees instantly appreciate the change. You take in the room around you. The dome curves upward in a smooth arc, each snow block catching the flicker of the lamp in a slightly different hue. The walls look solid yet soft, dimpled lightly where blocks meet. The air feels thick with peace. You can almost hear the slumber of the family. Each inhale a gentle note, each exhale a soft cloud of warmth that rises toward the top of the dome. Behind you, the tunnel yawns like a dark throat leading back into the world of endless ice. You feel grateful it is there, but even more grateful to be on this side of it. Your shoulders relax as you straighten your spine. You feel the heat intensify slightly around the upper part of your face. That warmth is being carefully preserved. In here, nothing is wasted. Every movement, every arrangement, every block of snow and piece of hide works together. You look around one more time. The journey through the narrow entrance has changed something in your mind. It has reminded you that warmth often hides behind humility, that to reach comfort in the Arctic winter, you must first stoop, bend, and trust the knowledge of those who have mastered this land. You take one last glance toward the glowing chamber and breathe deeply. The next moments will lead you fully inside, where the heart of winter life pulses quietly, waiting for you to join it. You step fully into the glowing chamber, easing your weight onto the layered skins beneath your boots. The shift from the tunnel to the main room feels like entering another season entirely. The cold outside still clings to your clothing, but it loosens its grip with every breath you take. Your eyes adjust slowly to the warm amber flicker cast by the quillic, the shallow stone lamp resting on its sculpted snow shelf. Its flame bends and straightens in a slow rhythm, almost like a heartbeat you can watch. The interior feels surprisingly spacious. You tilt your head upward, tracing the curve of the dome with your gaze. The snow blocks catch the lamplight in a soft, pearly shimmer. No two blocks reflect quite the same way. Some glow faintly golden, others look almost blue. The entire space feels alive with gentle movement even though nothing in it actually moves. A widely accepted fact in Arctic architecture is that the inside of an igloo brightens naturally once a lamp is lit. Snow does not behave like modern walls. Instead of absorbing light, it scatters it in all directions, bouncing it gently across every surface. You sense that effect immediately. The brightness is not harsh. It has no glare. It feels like a hand resting lightly on your shoulder, steadying you. You move closer to the quillic. The lamp is shallow, carved from stone, filled with rendered seal fat, and edged with a line of dried moss or cotton grass that acts as a wick. The flame burns steadily, barely flickering despite the faint air currents in the room. The smell it produces is almost sweet, a mix of soft smokiness and warm oil that reminds you of simmering food rather than fire. It is one of the first scents children learn to associate with comfort. A small detail that does not always make its way into mainstream books comes to mind. Some families placed polished slivers of bone or ivory near the lamp to help direct the light upward, creating a subtle glow that spread more evenly. It acted like a primitive reflector, shaping the room's brightness without wasting precious oil. You imagine those slivers glinting softly, throwing tiny reflections on the interior walls like warm stars. You crouch to get a closer look at the shelf holding the lamp. It has been shaped entirely from snow but feels solid enough to hold the weight of the stone container. The builder carved it with thoughtful angles that keep the heat from melting the structure beneath. Inuit knowledge extends far beyond mere construction. It includes fire management, airflow control, and a deep understanding of how different types of snow behave under warmth. As you study the lamp, the air shifts around you. Warmer currents rise toward the top of the dome, while cooler air drifts downward around your legs. The difference feels subtle but constant. You close your eyes. The heat on your cheeks feels like sunlight filtered through clouds. You can almost imagine this as a tiny sun trapped inside a frozen shell. You step back a little and let your gaze wander. Beyond the gentle flame, the room has an even stillness. You notice the carved ledges along the wall. Some hold small pouches made from sealskin. Others cradle tools, perhaps a bone scraper or a flint striker. Everything has its place. Nothing looks accidental. The igloo is both home and workshop, a space where survival is crafted day after day. Your thoughts drift to the way light moves within the dome. You see soft gradients dancing along the curve overhead. In some regions, builders used clear freshwater ice blocks when available to create a small light portal during the day. But practice varied widely, and researchers continued to discuss how common such additions truly were. Some argue that these features appeared mainly during longer stays, while others believe they were a more regional preference. Oral histories offer glimpses, but the Arctic rarely gives definitive answers. The very uncertainty adds a layer of intrigue. You picture generations of builders making choices based on weather, snow density, and immediate needs. Adaptation was the rule, not uniform tradition. Your breath forms a faint mist in the warmer air. You lift your hand and let your fingers hover above the flame's glow, not close enough to feel heat directly, but close enough to sense its presence. The quiet makes every movement feel intentional. The walls of the igloo amplify the silence. They swallow the outside world and leave only faint murmurs of wind. You hear none of the sharp whistles you expected. Instead, you hear a deep hush, like listening to a seashell but in reverse. The sound travels through the snow in soft pulses, smoothing the storm's voice into something gentle. Your eyes return to the quillic again. The lamp does more than illuminate the room. It dries clothing, hung carefully on lines above your head. It warms food placed near its sides. It even slightly melts the interior surface of the dome, causing a thin layer of ice to form that strengthens the structure. You find that last detail especially striking. Warmth here is not an enemy of snow. It becomes an ally. Another piece of lesser-known knowledge surfaces in your mind. Some elders describe how the lamp flame made tiny clicking sounds when the wick needed adjusting. These small cues guided nightly chores without need for clocks or constant checking. You imagine sitting nearby, half asleep, hearing that faint click and rising to trim the moss wick. It feels comforting, a soft duty that keeps the home breathing evenly through the night. You take a few steps to explore the opposite side of the chamber. Your shadow stretches behind you in a long arc that hugs the wall. The curvature of the room catches your silhouette and molds it into a soft shape, almost like a second self following you with patience. You touch the wall lightly. The surface is cool but not biting. It feels strangely alive, responding to the lamp's warmth, frost forming and softening in quiet cycles. The dome is not static. It changes throughout the night, tightening slightly as temperatures shift outside. The room feels almost sacred in its intimacy. The glow does not cast sharp boundaries. Everything merges. Bedding blends into shadow. The shelf blends into the dome. Your thoughts blend into the silence. You realize that living here would shift the very way you think about space. Instead of walls that separate, the structure surrounds you like a protective shell. You return to the center of the igloo and inhale deeply. The scent of burning oil, the warmth against your cheeks, the muted reflections on the walls, the feeling of being held inside a glowing cavern, all blend into one sensation. It is not luxury, it is not soft decadence, but it is comfort in its purest form. Families slept here with a confidence built through generations. This place, small and curved and glowing, was their shield against a world that could kill with a single misstep. You feel the depth of that knowledge settling into your bones. The flame crackles softly. You let your gaze settle on it one more time before the story leads you deeper into the routines that shaped winter nights. In here, warmth does not shout, it whispers. And in these whispers, you begin to understand how people found peace in the Arctic night. You let your eyes travel from the lamp to the raised sleeping platform carved along the far curve of the igloo. At first, it looks like a simple, elevated bench made of snow. But as you approach, you begin to understand how much thought lies beneath its clean, quiet design. The platform rises smoothly from the floor, creating a level where warmth naturally gathers. Families long ago learned that heat climbs, so why not sleep where the warmth is richest? You run your mitten across the edge, feeling how firm and even the snow has become. The height is deliberate. It lifts you above the coldest layer of air that settles near the floor. Arctic survival often depends on small decisions, and this one transforms sleep from a fragile hope into a nightly reality. Researchers widely acknowledge that these raised platforms improved temperature retention inside the igloo, helping families maintain comfort even when outside temperatures plunged frighteningly low. You picture parents guiding children up onto the higher level, reminding them to keep their feet buried in the thick hides. The bedding arranged on the platform invites you closer. Furs and hides lie in layered waves, soft and welcoming even in the low light. Caribou skin is especially prized for winter sleep, shaped by nature into the perfect insulator. You lift one fold, and the fur brushes your glove like a whisper. The underlayer feels almost springy, filled with hollow hairs that trap warm air so effectively that people still talk about caribou insulation with admiration. A charming detail you may not have heard before gently slips into your thoughts. Some families added a thin layer of woven grass beneath the hides to prevent moisture from building up between the bedding and the snow platform. The grass acted like a quiet mediator, pulling dampness away from the hides so the family could sleep without the chill of accumulated frost. Small adjustments like this reveal how deeply people understood winter's tricks. You kneel at the edge of the sleeping area, letting the lamplight wrap the platform in a gentle glow. Nothing about it feels rough or improvised. You can tell the surface was shaped carefully, smoothed and lifted with an artistic sense of proportion. Even the curve of the platform echoes the dome above it, making the entire room feel balanced, almost harmonious. The longer you look, the more it feels like the igloo itself is guiding you into rest. You place a hand on a fur pelt and imagine lying down here at the end of a long day. Your muscles relax just thinking about it. You can almost feel the gentle cushion beneath your shoulders, the warmth building around your legs, the softness rising to meet your weight. This space is built not for show, but for the practicality of deep, renewing sleep. After all, tomorrow will demand strength. Hunting, preparing tools, caring for children, maintaining the igloo itself. Every day carries a rhythm shaped by the land. You study the arrangement of blankets more closely. Each hide is placed with care, fur facing upward so warmth brushes the skin. Some bedding lies folded at the edges, likely used as pillows or extra coverings during the coldest nights. You can envision a parent reaching for one in the darkness, draping it gently over a child who has kicked theirs aside. The domestic tenderness inside an igloo contrasts beautifully with the unforgiving world just outside the walls. Your thoughts drift to how families position themselves at night. Some sleeping arrangements are well documented. Parents toward the back where heat lingers longest. Children between adults or near the center. Elders tucked close to the warmest section, protected by generations of devotion. But traditions varied. Certain accounts describe sleeping positions shaped by personal habits or by the layout of the particular snow house. Scholars continue to compare oral histories and explorer journals to better understand these nightly routines, though no single pattern defines every region. Arctic life resisted uniformity, adapting instead to each family's needs. The platform itself creates a gentle microclimate. You sense that even without lying down, your cheeks grow warmer when you stand near it. The hides radiate stored heat from bodies that rested here earlier. The air just above the bedding is a pocket of comfort. If you close your eyes, you can imagine the quiet breathing of the entire household, the steady rise and fall of chests, the soft rustle of fur, the faint shift of little feet tucked under blankets. You step backward to take in the whole design. The platform stretches along the wall, curving gently. The shape feels natural, as if the igloo has grown its own resting place. It is a beautiful example of function blending with form. Nothing is wasted. Not space, not heat, not effort. You start to understand why people could sleep so soundly here. The snow house acts like a cocoon, sheltering every sleeper from the ferocity outside. Your fingers trace one pelt again. The texture makes you think of winter nights filled with shared warmth, whispered stories, and slow drifting dreams. This was more than a place to rest. It was the heart of the home, a place where families gathered close, feeling the pulse of life beneath the hides. You inhale the scent of the bedding, a mix of fur, faint oil from clothing, and the lingering aroma of cooked food from earlier in the day. It smells lived in, soothing, familiar. You imagine curling up here after walking for hours in temperatures that punish every exposed inch of skin. The relief must have been overwhelming, like sinking into safety itself. Then you notice another subtle detail. The platform has a slightly raised back ridge, not enough to act as a wall, but enough to prevent bedding from slipping down during the night. You smile softly. Even the smallest touches matter in the Arctic. Every tiny improvement means a better chance of restful sleep. You look at the platform one last time, before moving deeper into the space. This elevated resting place, simple in appearance but rich in intention, taught families how to sleep deeply even during the longest winter nights. And as you stand near it, feeling its warmth rise toward your face, you begin to understand what it means to find comfort in a land shaped by ice. You move closer to the bedding, drawn by the soft glimmer of fur in the lamplight. The warmth rising from the raised platform feels richer now, as though the hides themselves hold memories of countless winter nights. You run your fingertips across a folded pelt and feel the fine, dense fur slip beneath your glove. Even without direct skin contact, you sense the quiet luxury of these materials. Out here in the Arctic, luxury is not gold or silk, it is warmth. And nothing provides warmth quite like the layered hides spread before you. You lift one corner of a caribou pelt. It feels surprisingly light. That weightlessness is part of its genius. Knowledge shared across northern communities consistently highlights caribou fur as the most efficient natural insulator available to families in winter. Each hair is hollow, trapping warmth inside tiny air chambers that resist even the most aggressive cold. When you hold the hide close, the fur seems to breathe, gathering heat from your hand and drifting it upward in a soft cloud. You unfold a second layer and catch a faint smell of the outdoors woven into the fibers. A hint of smoke, a trace of snow. It reminds you that everything in this home has a journey. These hides once moved across tundra, under the steady rhythm of migrating herds. Now they lie here, transformed into bedding that can cradle an entire family through long nights when the sun refuses to rise. As you kneel beside the bedding, your fingers graze a seam where two hides overlap. Nestled between them is a strip of soft sealskin, likely used to reinforce the edge and keep drafts from slipping through the layers. Not everyone knows this. Strong hides often needed delicate adjustments, and many families stitched or tied them with sinew threads so fine you almost cannot see them under lamplight. Those threads hold warmth in place like invisible guardians. A quieter, more unusual detail drifts into your mind. Some elders recall rubbing the fur lightly with snow before laying it out each night. Fresh snow removed tiny bits of moisture and kept odours at bay, leaving the bedding crisp and clean without damaging the fur. You picture someone crouched near the platform, brushing the hides gently with handfuls of powdery snow, smoothing them into a perfect nest for sleep. It is beautiful in its simplicity. You press your palm lightly into the layering. Beneath the top furs you feel the underlying structure: hard snow, frost-stiffened grass. A complex system designed to keep warmth flowing upward. You imagine lying down here after a full day outside, exhausted and windburned. The hides would welcome you instantly, softening beneath your weight, almost sighing in relief as you settle into them. The air above the platform feels pleasantly warm against your face. You close your eyes for a brief moment and lean closer, letting your cheek hover near the fur. You imagine the sensation of sinking into this bedding. It is not too soft. It is supportive, familiar, grounding, a perfect surface for sleep shaped by centuries of fine-tuning. You sit back and notice the layering pattern: fur side up, flesh side down, each hide arranged deliberately. A mistake here would waste heat. But these arrangements follow traditions that changed slowly over generations. Some accounts suggest that caribou hides were placed in specific seasonal combinations, with thicker early winter pelts reserved for the coldest months. Other accounts describe families rotating hides to maintain even wear. Researchers continue comparing oral stories to field notes from early visitors, searching for a clear pattern, though practices varied widely across regions. The Arctic never offered identical conditions, so ingenuity shifted from place to place. Your gaze falls on a bundle at the edge of the platform. It holds spare furs tied neatly with a strip of sinew. You pull it gently apart and see another layer of caribou skin, this one larger and thicker, likely used as a top blanket. You lift it fully and feel the weight settle across your arms like a gentle animal. The warmth builds fast, almost startling in its intensity. You can imagine children burrowing under this blanket during freezing nights, disappearing completely except for small tufts of hair showing above the fur. You drape it back onto the pile and smooth it with your hand, feeling the soft wave of fibers follow your motion. Light from the lamp makes the fur ripple in shades of honey and bronze. It is strangely hypnotic. You shift your attention to a stretched sealskin covering the far corner. Unlike caribou fur, sealskin repels moisture. It was often used to protect bedding from damp clothing or melted snow brought in from outside. You touch a section of it and feel its cool smoothness. The contrast between the caribou's fluffy texture and the seal's sleek finish reminds you that each material serves a distinct purpose. A light shuffling sound catches your attention. Somewhere above, a strand of fur sways softly from a hanging line, moved by the gentle convection currents created by the lamp. You watch the small motion and feel your breathing slow. Everything in this room seems to sway or shimmer at the pace of sleep. You imagine the nightly ritual unfolding. A parent lifts the blankets. Children crawl underneath, burrowing deep. Adults ease down beside them, sharing warmth. The hides settle around bodies like protective wings. The scent of fur mingles with the soft aroma of oil from the quillic. The temperature rises another degree. Eyelids grow heavy. You lean forward, placing your palm on the main bedding again, and feel a faint warmth lingering from earlier use. It spreads slowly into your wrist. You realize the platform is not just a bed. It is a shared sanctuary, a place that gathers everyone together when the world outside turns unforgiving. You sit quietly with this thought. The hides shimmer as the lamp flickers. The room feels wrapped in softness, and you begin to understand that the secret of warmth here is not just the materials. It is the layering of knowledge, tradition, and care. You settle near the sleeping platform, letting the warmth gather around your chest as you study how the bedding curves gently toward the center. It is easy to imagine a family arranging themselves here at night. The hides invite closeness, not just for comfort, but for survival. You notice how the central portion of the platform dips ever so slightly, shaped by years of bodies curling together. The pattern reveals a quiet truth. People slept in deliberate formations, creating a shared pool of heat that kept everyone safe during the coldest months. You picture yourself lying down among them, someone on your left, someone on your right, the feeling of shoulders brushing beneath thick blankets. In the Arctic winter, personal space becomes a luxury no one asks for. You can almost hear the faint exhalations of the family, steady and calm, weaving into a single rhythm. Each breath adds warmth. Each shift of weight redistributes comfort. A commonly discussed point in Arctic ethnographic work is the idea that sleeping arrangements were fluid, shaped by age, health, and nightly needs rather than strict rules. Parents typically place themselves along the outer edges to shield children from stray drafts. Elders, whose bodies cooled more easily, were often guided toward the warmest center. Infants slept skin to skin against their mothers, wrapped in soft layers of fur and clothing. You imagine a mother holding a tiny child close, smoothing a hand over the baby's head as the lamp flickers gently. Then there are the smaller, more intimate customs that travelers rarely wrote down. One old story recalls siblings quietly racing to claim the middle spot on nights when the cold seemed especially stubborn. They would whisper and giggle beneath the hides, settling their tiny disputes long before sleep took them. This charming fragment of memory adds a touch of humor to the reality of Arctic nights. As you sit there, you try to imagine the choreography of settling in, everyone adjusting their layers, someone tucking the bedding around their shoulders, another bending knees to create extra space. All of it quiet and familiar, a family's shared nest. You run your glove along the fur and think about warmth distribution. Body heat in here is a resource carefully managed. Every position matters. When people slept back to back or curled in a circle, they created a zone of heat far greater than the sum of individual bodies. The raised platform helped, but human closeness completed the design. You sense how powerful that closeness must have felt, not just physically, but emotionally. In a land where the world outside can freeze exposed skin in moments, the reminder that you are not alone must have carried a comfort too deep for words. You look at the walls and feel the dome leaning inward slightly, as though it listens. Under the gentle glow, the whole space feels alive with memories of nights spent in quiet companionship. You can almost hear the soft rustle as someone shifts under a warm hide. You can imagine the sound of a child sighing into sleep, legs tucked beneath the thick layers. These noises are not interruptions, they are reassurance. Different groups across the north held their own understandings of ideal sleeping formations. Some accounts recorded by early visitors suggest that couples sometimes lay facing one another to share breath and warmth directly, while children nestled along their parents' sides. Other accounts describe long rows of sleepers arranged with feet toward the tunnel and heads toward the highest part of the platform. Researchers examining these stories still disagree on which arrangements were common across regions. Variations in climate, family size, and seasonal movement all shaped nightly habits. Instead of one fixed pattern, Arctic sleeping customs form a tapestry of local adaptations. You allow yourself to imagine the subtle complexity of nighttime communication. A hand brushing another to check for warmth. A parent adjusting a hide to prevent a tiny draft from unsettling a sleeping child. A quiet whisper shared in the dark. The soft laugh of someone remembering an amusing moment from the day. In a home made of snow, these small sounds echo gently, never harsh, bouncing off the curved walls in softened ripples. Your eyes drift toward the entrance ridge. Even from here you can sense the cold lingering down in the tunnel. It reminds you why families slept close together. The difference between comfort and chill was often just a few inches of space. Move too close to the tunnel's pull and you feel the cold creep in through the bedding. Move closer to the center and the warmth gathers around your chest like a blanket of breath. You shift slightly, imagining yourself lying down along the back curve of the platform. Your head rests on a folded hide, your feet warm beneath layers of soft fur. The lamp casts a dim halo across the dome, and the steady airflow fills the space with a quiet, warm pulse. Next to you, a family member turns onto their side, the hides rustling softly. A child curls their knees toward you, seeking shared heat. All of it feels natural. You sense another layer of meaning in these sleeping patterns. In the Arctic, vulnerability is shared, safety is shared, rest is shared. The sleeping platform holds more than bodies. It holds trust. When you lie down together, you become an island of warmth against a continent of cold. You close your eyes and picture the entire household drifting gradually into sleep, one by one, warmed by one another, sheltered by snow, comforted by the familiar rise and fall of breathing that fills the night like a gentle wave. You understand then that sleeping in an igloo is not an isolated act. It is a collective ritual, a merging of warmth, care and tradition, a nightly reminder that survival flows through connection. You sit near the sleeping platform a little longer, letting the warmth settle into your shoulders before turning your attention to the quieter evening rituals that fill the final stretch before sleep. The igloo feels still, but not inactive. There is a soft energy in the room, a kind of winding down that happens slowly, layer by layer, like snow drifting to rest after a long storm. You take a breath and notice how the air carries faint scents of cooked meat, warm oil from the quillic, and the earthy aroma of hides drying above. The mixture is comforting, familiar, and deeply tied to winter living. As you watch the chamber, you can almost see the evening rhythm unfold. Children nibbling the final bites of food, adults checking tools by lamplight, someone brushing snow off a pair of mittens before setting them near the warmth to dry. These small actions are gentle and unhurried. Nighttime is not rushed here. It arrives quietly, and families meet it with a similar softness. A commonly acknowledged observation among Arctic researchers is that nightly tasks inside an igloo were shaped by routine as much as necessity. Certain chores always belonged to this time of day: trimming the oil lamp wick, shaking loose snow from clothing, lightly massaging stiff fingers after hours outside. You imagine someone sitting near the quillic, carefully pinching the wick between two fingertips to adjust its height, ensuring a clean flame through the night. The lamp responds with a steadier burn. You lift your gaze toward the hanging line above. Mittens, boots, and parkas sway gently from the rising warmth. Many families use this moment to check every stitch, every seam, every tie made of sinew. Clothing failure in winter could be as dangerous as a failing shelter, but the checking did not feel like work. It felt like a ritual filled with quiet care. Then your thoughts drift to a lesser-known habit that often gets lost in broader descriptions. Some elders speak of gently warming a pair of socks or inner boots by pressing them between two hides while the bedding was prepared. The hides absorbed heat from the lamp, making the garments feel pleasantly warm when slipped on the next morning. It is a gesture you can almost feel in your fingertips, the small joy of dressing in warmth after a long, cold sleep. You watch the chamber and imagine the family gathered near the platform. Someone might be repairing a toggle on a coat, someone else smoothing out a hide so it lies flat. A child quietly tracing circles in the frost near the wall. These movements create a soothing rhythm, the kind that makes your eyes grow heavy just by watching. But not every detail of nightly routine is clear to historians. Many accounts differ about exactly how tasks were divided among family members, and which activities typically filled the time before bed. Some sources describe evenings filled with conversation and soft storytelling, while others recall families settling into quiet reflection, especially during the darkest months. The truth likely varies from region to region and home to home. Researchers continue to compare oral memories with explorer journals, yet the picture remains beautifully varied. Here, inside the igloo, you see how easy it is for such variation to exist. Every family would have shaped its own nightly rhythm. Some might hum softly while preparing bedding, others might speak in whispers. Some might go about tasks silently, letting the lamp provide the only voice in the room. You let yourself picture a grandmother telling a gentle tale to a dozing child, her voice floating in and out of the lamplight like a drifting ember. You inhale deeply, letting the warm air settle in your lungs. The room already feels like it is preparing for sleep. The lamp burns a little lower. Shadows stretch longer and soften at their edges. The bedding seems to pull the glow toward it, creating an inviting cradle of warmth. In the far corner, you imagine someone taking a moment to mend a small tear in a mitten. The slow, deliberate movement of the needle almost hypnotizes you. Even this simple act is part of the nightly ritual. It ensures that tomorrow will be faced with readiness rather than scrambling. Night is a time of preparation as much as rest. You notice, too, the soundscape of evening settling. Nothing sharp, no loud snaps or shuffles. Only the soft hiss of the lamp wick, the rustle of hides moving under careful hands, and the occasional sigh from someone already half asleep. These small sounds form a kind of lullaby that wraps around the family. Your attention drifts back to the walls. Thin crystals of frost gather at certain points where warm breath meets the cold surface. You watch them glimmer faintly in the lamp's glow, like tiny constellations forming inside the dome, a delicate pattern of white stars on snow. You can imagine someone tracing them with a fingertip before bed, following each cluster like a map. You kneel and feel the bedding again. The hides are warm. The center of the platform radiates comfort. Someone has clearly fluffed the layers, adding a slight lift to the furs. You sense the invitation in their softness. Soon, bodies will curl beneath them. Soon, the chamber will fill with the quiet music of sleep. The lamp flickers slightly, a faint shift of the wick perhaps. You watch the flame and think about how important these final moments are. This is when the household transitions from waking awareness to drifting rest, a time to speak last words of the day, to settle disagreements if any linger, to share a final smile or nod, to pull the hides around your shoulders and release the weight of the cold world outside. You picture the family now, a parent whispering for a child to climb onto the platform, an older sibling pulling the blankets aside with practiced ease. The room feels ready. The warmth is steady. The air carries a mellow heaviness that encourages slow breathing. As you rise to your feet, you realize that nightly rituals here are not dramatic. They are subtle, grounded, and filled with gentle repetition. Each gesture helps settle the mind. Each sound eases the spirit. In the stillness of the igloo, the quiet acts of preparing for sleep become a form of affection. You let yourself imagine performing these tasks day after day, year after year, until the motions become second nature. The Arctic teaches patience, and patience teaches peace. When you turn back to the platform, the hides look even softer now. The lamplight embraces them fully. The rituals of the evening have shaped the space into a sanctuary. It is time to move closer, to settle, to let the quiet of the Arctic night guide your breathing toward rest. You ease yourself closer to the center of the igloo and sit quietly, letting your breathing slow until it matches the calm rhythm of the room. Night has fully settled now, and the world outside feels distant, almost erased. You tilt your head, listening. At first you hear nothing, absolute stillness. Then slowly, your ears begin to catch the quietest textures of sound. The Arctic does not roar at night. It whispers. The thick snow walls mute the outside world, softening every gust of wind into a gentle sigh. You imagine standing outside the igloo right now. The wind would scrape across the open ice, sharp and purposeful, cutting through your hood if you turned the wrong way. But in here, that same wind arrives as a faint hum, a slow, low murmur that seems to circle the dome like a fingertip tracing a drum. The contrast feels surreal. A well-recognized observation among Arctic researchers is that snow is one of the most effective natural sound insulators in the world. Packed snow absorbs vibration, dulling footsteps, wind, distant cracking ice, even voices. That is why igloos feel so remarkably quiet once you step inside. The outside world simply fades into softness. You sit still and sense the thickness of that silence settle around you like a second blanket. Then you catch another sound, a faint tapping, more like a tremble than a tap. It is the snow shifting gently under its own weight as temperature changes. It is nothing dramatic, just tiny crystals settling into place. The dome is adjusting, breathing, settling into the night. You picture each block warming on the interior side and chilling on the exterior. This difference causes subtle shifts, but none of them threaten the stability. The home stays strong even as it lives. Your gaze drifts upward. You see small sparkles scattered across the walls, tiny flecks catching the lamplight where frost has begun to form. The crystals create the illusion of distant stars. The effect is mesmerizing. You stare at them long enough that the interior dome begins to feel like its own night sky, protective and intimate. A quieter detail that does not always appear in popular descriptions surfaces in your thoughts. Some families were said to judge the weather outside by listening carefully to how the igloo responded. A low rumbling meant heavy winds. A quick series of taps meant dry snow drifting across the top. A muted thump sometimes hinted at a fox or small animal passing nearby. These subtle sounds painted a picture of the outside world without ever opening the entrance. You close your eyes and try to identify each sound. The soft breeze pressing against the dome, the delicate settling of frost, perhaps even the faint vibration of a distant ice crack carried through the land itself. Everything becomes part of a gentle nighttime orchestra. Nothing startles, nothing clatters. The Arctic night sings in slow motion. Of course, not all scholars agree on how consistent these listening practices were across regions. Some anthropologists believe families developed highly sensitive auditory habits, while others argue that such claims were based on limited outsider impressions. The truth likely lies somewhere between. You understand this uncertainty now. Sitting in the igloo, surrounded by its layered quiet, you realize how easy it would be to rely on sound, and how easy it would be for memories to drift or change over time. You open your eyes again and let the silence wash over you. It is a silence filled with texture. The air feels thick, as though it holds every breath from earlier in the evening. The lamp hums with a soft, steady whisper. The hides rustle occasionally as warm air rises and falls in the gentle convection currents. You lean back slightly, resting your weight on your palms. The silence makes your mind drift. Without loud noises or harsh edges, your thoughts slow. You notice how peaceful your own heartbeat sounds. The quiet becomes part of you. It calms your muscles, softens your awareness, pulls you deeper into the night. In the far corner, the lamp flame flickers and throws shadows upward. The shadows ripple like slow waves cresting against the snow walls. You watch them curve and fade, reminding you of moonlit water on a distant shore. Everything in here transforms. Snow becomes sky, shadows become tides, silence becomes music. You take another breath. The air tastes faintly of cooled oil and clean snow. Something about that combination relaxes you further. Your shoulders drop, your jaw loosens. You feel yourself sinking gently toward the mood of the room. Then you notice something unexpected. The silence outside makes every tiny sound inside more intimate. A fingertip brushing a hide, a sleepy sigh, the crackle of a wick adjusting itself. These small noises do not disturb the quiet. They enrich it. They remind you that this silence is shared with others resting nearby. You imagine a family curled under the furs. One turns slightly, causing a soft wave of motion. Someone hums a few sleepy notes, perhaps out of habit. A child murmurs in their dreams. Each sound is delicate, round, soothing. You lean your head back and close your eyes once more, letting the gentle hum of the igloo wrap around your awareness. You picture the world outside, endless horizons of snow, distant mountains softened by drifting powder, stars bright enough to seem close enough to touch, cold beyond comprehension, vastness beyond measure, all of it held at bay by the quiet of this room. The silence here is not empty. It is fullness, warmth, safety, a cocoon of soundlessness where bodies rest and dreams grow effortless. You sense how easy it would be to fall asleep in such a place. Even you, an outsider, can feel the weight of drowsiness forming around your eyelids. The igloo continues to hum faintly, singing its soft lullaby, and as you sit quietly on the sleeping platform, you begin to understand how this gentle hush becomes an essential part of every Arctic night. You breathe in slowly and notice how the air carries a richer scent now that the igloo has settled into its nighttime calm. The warmth from the quillic has deepened, and with it comes a blend of aromas that mark the transition from waking hours to the dreamy quiet of sleep. You close your eyes for a moment and simply inhale. The room smells like melting snow, warm oil, softened fur, and a faint trace of cooked fat from the evening meal. Nothing sharp or overwhelming. Everything muted, rounded, gentle. You lean closer to the lamp, feeling the heat brush your cheek. The quillic flickers in slow little gestures, as though it too is preparing to drift into its nighttime rhythm. The scent the lamp gives off is distinctive, a mellow mixture of seal oil and warm stone. Every family would have recognized it instantly, the same way people today recognize the scent of coffee or fresh bread. It is the fragrance of home in winter. You shift your focus to the walls, noticing how the warm air rising from the lamp has softened the interior surface slightly. That gentle warmth mixes with the smell of the snow itself. Not the scent of fresh powder outside, but the slightly humid, mineral scent of snow that has been touched by heat. It reminds you faintly of cold laundry brought indoors, or the faint smell that lingers on mittens drying after a long day. A widely referenced insight from Arctic dwellers is that these scents are part of what helps people fall asleep in the igloo. They signal that the lamp is steady, the walls are strong, and the night is unfolding normally. Your body begins to relax simply by breathing the air. Everything here whispers reassurance. Mixed with these familiar smells is a trace of something sweet and earthy. The fur bedding. Caribou hides hold onto the scent of the animal in the gentlest way. Not musky, not heavy, but warm. When heated slightly by body warmth and lamp glow, the hides release a mild aroma that reminds you of dry grass under summer sun, even though you stand in a house made of snow. You brush your fingers lightly across a folded hide, and the scent deepens for a moment. It is grounding, a reminder that warmth and life have been stitched together here for generations. You realize then that in this tiny dome, every sense has its own role in guiding people towards sleep, not just touch and warmth and silence. Smell too. The air becomes part of the ritual. Then you catch another note, a subtle, smoky trace left behind from when the lamp wick was trimmed earlier. The smoke is barely noticeable, but you sense its thin ribbon weaving through the room, mixing with the scent of warm oil. Some families said they could tell who maintained the lamp simply by how the smoke smelled. A playful detail passed between relatives who knew one another's habits well. You remember hearing a small but captivating detail from certain elders. They would hang small pouches of dried Arctic herbs above the lamp, not for strong fragrance, but to freshen the air subtly. These plants were not widespread, so the practice was not universal, but in places where such herbs grew, their dried leaves gave the igloo faint hints of greenery, like the memory of summer preserved inside a winter home. You imagine that delicate scent mingling with the warm oil now, carrying a whisper of life from a world currently buried under snow. The more you breathe in, the more you notice how these scents help shape the atmosphere. There is a softness to them, nothing bitter or intrusive. Even the oil, which can smell sharp when freshly rendered, becomes round and warm once burning steadily. The room feels like a living blend of warmth and earth and quiet flame. As you settle deeper into the moment, another thought surfaces. Not everyone agrees on how strong these scents were historically. Some early explorers wrote dramatic descriptions, claiming the lamp smoke was overwhelming. Others insisted that well-maintained igloos smelled clean and pleasant, with only mild traces of oil. Modern researchers still compare these accounts, trying to understand how much variation came from experience and how much from individual expectations. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in the middle, or perhaps each igloo had its own smell shaped by the habits of its family. You turn slightly, noticing how scent pools differently in various parts of the room. Near the platform, the smell of warm fur is strongest. Near the entrance, the cold scent of incoming air lingers. Near the lamp, the fragrance of burning oil dominates. The scent of the igloo is not a single smell. It is a collection of small notes layered together, just as the bedding is layered on the platform. You inhale deeply once more, the warm hides, the faint oil, the soft frost, the minerality of melting snow. Together they create a sense of drowsy comfort. Your eyes grow heavier just breathing it in. You imagine what it must feel like for a child raised here, falling asleep each night, wrapped in these familiar perfumes, associating them with safety and belonging. You shift your position and sit cross-legged, letting the warmth seep into your legs. The scent changes slightly as you move. You catch a hint of dried sinew used to stitch the bedding, a trace of leather from boots drying overhead. Perhaps even the smell of hands that shaped this home, lingering faintly in the hides and snow. Human presence leaves subtle marks, even in a house made of ice. The lamp flickers again, and a new wave of warm oil scent fills the room. It drifts across you in a slow sweep, like a hand smoothing over your shoulders. You understand why this smell is tied to calmness. It means the lamp is alive. It means the family will stay warm until morning. It means the night is under control. You let your fingertips rest on the platform and close your eyes. With your sight gone, the scent becomes stronger. You feel it wrap around your senses. Soft, earthy, warm, honest. Nothing artificial, nothing out of place. You imagine a family settling in now. Someone pulls the hides over their shoulders. Someone else leans in to share warmth. In the dim glow, the scents deepen and blend, and the room becomes a cradle for sleep. Each breath brings them comfort and quiet. Each inhalation brings you closer to that same drowsy peace. If you were to fall asleep here tonight, it would be because the air itself teaches your body how to rest. These smells, faint and familiar, have guided generations into dreams. And as you breathe them in now, you feel the Arctic night pulling you gently toward its calm. You shift your attention toward the clothing arranged neatly along the inner wall of the igloo. Even in the dim glow, the parkas, mittens, and layered boots look like silent guardians waiting for the next day's cold. The family has placed each piece with intention, close enough to the lamp to stay pliable, but far enough away that no melting or scorching occurs. You move closer, letting your fingertips brush the edge of a drying mitten, and feel how the warmth has softened the fibers just enough to make them pleasant to wear again by morning. You realize that nighttime inside an igloo is not simply about sleeping. It is also about preserving the readiness of your clothing. The Arctic does not forgive anything damp or frozen. A pair of stiff boots could make the morning dangerous. So before rest, families always tended to their garments with care. A commonly accepted point in studies of northern lifeways is that outer layers were never left to freeze if it could be avoided. People removed them as soon as they entered the igloo, placing them where rising air from the lamp would gently warm them. You sense that practice now as the faint heat brushes across your cheeks. The airflow created by the quillic is subtle, but it moves upward in a slow spiral, drying everything in its path. You kneel next to a pair of boots perched on a small snow ledge. They are made of sealskin, flexible yet strong, with fur folded inward for warmth. When you lift one gently, you feel how light it is. The interior holds the warmth of the room like a small pocket of comfort. You turn it slightly, catching the lamplight on its surface, and notice the fine stitches made from sinew. Each stitch is tight and even, worked by hand with deliberate care. A lesser-known detail drifts into your thoughts. Some families filled their boots with dried grass after removing them, allowing the grass to wick away moisture and maintain the shape of the footwear overnight. The practice worked astonishingly well, keeping the interior of the boots dry even in harsh conditions. You imagine sliding your feet into such boots in the morning and feeling the pleasant dryness hugging your toes. Your eyes move next to the mittens. Thick, double-layered, fur-lined. You pick up one and squeeze lightly. The mitten pushes back with a kind of springy warmth. These are not fragile things. They are engineered for survival, using materials that have been perfected over generations. When worn outside, the mittens freeze slightly on the outer layer, but inside they remain warm and soft. Tonight, though, they stay here near the lamp, relaxing from the day's frost. As you place the mitten down, you notice how the scent of warm fur lingers on your glove. It mixes with the smell of lamp oil, creating the quiet perfume of an Arctic home at night. Your attention travels upward to where the family's parkas hang. Long, hooded, trimmed with fur that still holds traces of the outdoor cold. Some parkas use wolf fur around the hood, others use wolverine or dog. These materials were chosen because frost does not cling easily to them. You peer closely and see how the fur ruff curves outward, catching warm air and preventing cold wind from biting at the face. You brush your fingers lightly along the outer seam of one parka. True to traditional design, the seams run across the body rather than vertically, preventing cold air from sliding into the stitching. A small but important detail. Clothing here is never accidental. It is shaped by knowledge earned through hardship. But not every description of nightly clothing care is consistent across historical accounts. Some stories claim families hung everything high above the lamp to prevent moisture from gathering. Others describe garments placed strategically along the walls where warmth circulated but did not rise too quickly. Researchers comparing these recollections often find differences shaped by region, season, or available materials. The variability does not weaken the story. It enriches it. The Arctic demanded adaptation, not uniformity. You sit cross-legged now, gazing at the garments. You imagine the evening ritual unfolding a few hours earlier. A hunter entering with snow crusted around the bottom of his parka, brushing it off before stepping onto the platform. A child tugging at frozen boots while a parent helps loosen the stiff ties. Mittens pulled off with a soft thump and placed near the warmth. Each action done with both care and familiarity. You picture someone turning their boots upside down to let a little frost fall out, then propping them near the lamp so the leather can relax. Perhaps another person sits nearby, working a small tool through a narrow seam to remove embedded ice crystals. All these tasks happen quietly, without complaint. They are simply part of life. Your gaze returns to the parkas. You notice something delicate near the hoods. Strands of fur shifting with tiny movements of warm air. They look like small waves rising and falling. If you close your eyes, you can almost feel those hoods against your cheeks, softening the blow of wind, guiding warm breath back inward. You understand why children must have felt comforted being wrapped in these garments. They were like walking nests of heat. You return your attention to the drying line above the lamp. A few pairs of thin inner socks dangle there, no bigger than your hand. They sway gently, warmed from below. You imagine slipping into them in the morning, the softness hugging your feet as you prepare to step into the frozen world again. The warmth would feel like a quiet reminder that the night protected you. A small flicker from the lamp draws your eye downward. The flame shifts slightly, sending a fresh wave of heat across the clothing. You watch the air shimmer above it, the warm currents drifting upward like invisible threads weaving through the fabric. The clothing seems to drink in that warmth. You close your eyes and imagine lying here, listening to the gentle sound of garments settling as they soften and dry. Nothing loud, just a faint rustle, a small whisper, the sound of safety being restored for tomorrow. Then you think about the importance of these clothing rituals on the psychological level. Ending the day by drying and arranging garments must have given families a sense of readiness, a sense that tomorrow would be manageable, that cold could be met with confidence. These nightly habits became a quiet shield against the harsh world outside. You open your eyes again. The lamplight turns the hides and garments golden. Everything seems to glow softly, Even the coldest pieces of clothing now hold warmth within them, like living things. You reach out and touch the tip of a boot again. It feels supple, safe. Tomorrow, it will help someone cross miles of frozen ground without fear. You step back from the clothing, letting the warmth surround you. Everything is ready. The garments are soft, dry, and warm. The bedroom of the Arctic night has been prepared fully. Nothing has been neglected. You take one last breath of the rich, warm air and realize how deeply comforting this nightly ritual must have been. A steady routine in a landscape where routine could mean survival. A soft hum of warmth woven quietly through leather, fur, and snow. And now, with all garments tended and night reaching its deepest calm, you feel the igloo drawing you closer to rest. You shift your weight on the warm platform and listen to the room growing quieter with each passing moment. The clothing is drying softly in the rising air. The lamp burns low and steady, and the igloo seems to settle around you like a great white blanket. You notice how voices, once gently active a short time ago, have begun to fade into the stillness. Families in winter did not stay up late chatting. Their days were long, and nights were meant for rest. Soon the final conversations of the household begin to dissolve into drowsy breaths. You imagine a group of people gathered just where you sit now, finishing their last murmured exchanges of the day. A whispered question, a small piece of advice. Perhaps someone recounts a funny moment from earlier, causing a quiet ripple of laughter that bounces softly off the curved walls. The dome catches every sound, bright or gentle, and reshapes it into something smoother. No harsh edges, no sharp echoes, just warm, rounded notes drifting into the air. A commonly noted observation in accounts of Arctic winter life is that nighttime conversations often grew softer, not out of fear of disturbing others, but because the space itself encouraged calm. The igloo's shape created an atmosphere where loud speech felt unnecessary. You feel that truth now. Even whispering seems almost too bold when every part of this home invites a slower, quieter voice. When people speak softly here, it feels like the room listens with patience. You lean back on your hands, closing your eyes for a moment. The last bits of conversation continue in your imagination. A parent checks in on a child, asking softly if they are warm enough. A grandmother hums a short tune, more breath than melody. An older sibling whispers about the tasks waiting tomorrow, their voice low so as not to stir the younger ones. The room holds each sound gently and releases it into the warmth. Then comes a smaller, more tender detail passed along in stories from elders. Some families carried tiny traditions of quiet play just before bed. A child might tap a finger along a hide in a soft rhythm, prompting a sibling to match it. Or someone might draw shapes in the frost near the wall, leaving little patterns that could linger until morning. These final moments of wakefulness had their own gentle charm. You let yourself picture a child tracing a spiraling line into the frost with a fingertip while a parent watches with tired eyes. Soon, the drawing fades as warmth rises, but the moment stays nestled inside the memory of the home. It is a kind of art that vanishes even as it's created, yet somehow adds to the night's comfort. But not every household followed the same rhythm. Some accounts tell of families sharing long stories before bed, preserving oral traditions by letting tales unfold slowly in the dim glow. Other accounts suggest that winters brought fatigue so deep that families spoke only briefly before succumbing to sleep. Modern researchers still compare these recollections, recognizing that the Arctic covers vast distances and no single nightly routine fits all communities. The diversity of traditions adds richness rather than confusion. Your eyes open again as you notice a shift in the lamp flame. It dips slightly, then steadies. The new pattern sends a thin wave of shadow drifting across the igloo's wall. The shadows stretch and shrink like slow-moving clouds in a winter sky. You follow them with your gaze, their gentle dance mirroring the hushed conversations winding down around you. You imagine someone adjusting their position on the bedding, a soft rustle, a quiet exhale. Then another person drawing closer beneath the furs. As bodies settle into place, The whispers grow fewer. You can almost hear the final sentence spoken that night, the last soft word trailing off into the warm air, and then silence. It is a living silence, not empty. You can sense the nearness of resting bodies. You can feel the warmth radiating from the bedding. The hush feels shared, like a collective agreement that rest is beginning. You lean slightly to one side and imagine a child curling their knees toward their parent, nestling closer into the pocket of heat. You imagine an elder sighing contentedly, settling into a comfortable spot they know well. You inhale through your nose, letting the scent of warm fur and faint oil pass through you. The air is thick with the day's final breath. Even without speaking, the room holds the memory of conversation. You sense the lingering pulse of stories and murmurs hanging just above the platform, slowly fading into sleep. Your mind drifts to the shape of the dome again. The walls curve inward like cupped hands. They appear to cradle the family's voices, catching them, softening them, and finally allowing them to dissolve. The architecture of the igloo does more than protect from cold. It shapes the very sound of life inside it. You imagine the final hum of a lullaby. Perhaps not even a full melody, just a few soothing notes hummed under someone's breath. The kind sung not to entertain but to comfort. The kind that drifts easily into silence when eyelids grow too heavy to keep time. The lamp flame lowers once more, creating longer shadows that cradle the bedding in gentle darkness. The fading light encourages even the most talkative family member to quiet down. Soon all that remains of conversation is the soft sound of breathing in a shared space. You adjust your position on the platform and feel the firmness beneath you. The hides hold warmth, but they also hold the echo of earlier voices. You imagine lying here at night, your cheek resting against a fur pelt, your ears filled with nothing but the slow, steady inhale and exhale of the people you trust most. It is a deeply grounding sensation. Another small detail resurfaces in your memory. Some elders describe that during the longest nights, when darkness could stretch across weeks, families sometimes drifted into conversations about dreams or future plans. But they kept their voices low, afraid to wake someone who had already surrendered to sleep. These whispered exchanges lingered, like fragile threads between wakefulness and dreaming. Your thoughts settle around that image, a nearly sleeping family, half wrapped in silence, half drifting through soft conversation. The space between words grows longer, the pauses become warmer. Eventually, even the whispers fade. You rest your hands in your lap and draw one more slow breath. The igloo now feels complete in its quiet. Conversations have finished their slow descent into stillness. The hush of the room settles around your shoulders like another layer of fur. The family is drifting, and soon you will join them. You sit quietly on the sleeping platform, noticing how the warmth in the igloo feels steady now, almost perfectly balanced. The lamp burns with a small, confident flame. The bedding radiates the day's collected heat. The walls hold everything together in a gentle embrace. But warmth in an Arctic home is never something you can take for granted. Families had to tend to it, nurture it, and adjust their environment throughout the night. Survival depended on tiny corrections made almost without thinking. You shift slightly, feeling how each movement stirs a faint current of air. Even that tiny breeze reminds you how delicate the temperature can be in a snow house. The cold outside still presses hard against the walls, even if you can no longer feel its sting. Inside, the balance between heat and frost must be kept with quiet precision. A widely accepted observation among Arctic residents is that body heat plays a tremendous role in maintaining nighttime warmth. The more bodies gathered together on the raised platform, the more effectively the room warms. You sense that truth now, as you rest near the furs. Every breath rising upward forms a thin layer of warmer air near the dome's peak. Every sleeping figure becomes a tiny heater, contributing to a shared envelope of comfort. Yet warmth does not simply gather and stay, it must be managed. You lean closer to the entrance tunnel and feel the faint cold pooling there. The tunnel acts as a trap for unwanted drafts, but it also changes over time. Snow shifts, air pressure changes. The The cold can creep upward if not monitored. That is why families made subtle adjustments throughout the night, sometimes waking just enough to tighten a hide, reposition a body, or smooth a gap in the bedding where cold air might sneak in. A small, intriguing detail remembered in certain communities describes how people sometimes placed a thin scrap of skin or fabric near the tunnel entrance so they could sense any change in airflow. If the scrap fluttered or swayed, someone would quietly rise to check the tunnel and press loose snow into any thinning areas. You imagine yourself in their place, half asleep, noticing a slight motion in the darkness, rising with practiced quiet to preserve the night's warmth. You settle back into the bedding and glance toward the lamp. The flame dances gently, its light shifting across the walls in lazy spirals. It gives off a soft heat, but the lamp's warmth is not always enough. Families supplemented it with their own bodies, their clothing, and their carefully layered sleep arrangements. Everything worked together like a slow, steady pulse. But not all sources fully agree on how often these nighttime adjustments were made. Some accounts suggest that families rarely woke once settled, trusting the design of the igloo to maintain warmth until morning. Others claim people regularly stirred to tend the tunnel or adjust the lamp. Modern researchers continue piecing together these memories, noting that habits likely varied from region to region and family to family. The Arctic resists one-size-fits-all descriptions, though the heart of the practice remains clear. Warmth was a communal responsibility. You rub your hands together lightly, feeling the growing comfort in your palms. The air surrounding you seems to hold steady at a level far warmer than the freezing landscape outside. You imagine the family lying around you, some drifting into deeper sleep, others beginning to enter that half-dreaming state where the mind notices everything and nothing at once. Someone might shift their weight, creating a wave of warmth that ripples through the hides. Another person might tuck a foot further under a blanket, reinforcing the shared cocoon of heat. You lean closer to the dome wall and rest your fingertips against its smooth surface. The snow feels cool, but not icy. The interior of the dome has absorbed enough warmth from the lamp and the sleepers to maintain a stable temperature. It is one of the igloo's most remarkable traits. Heat softens the inner layer just enough to form a thin glaze of ice, strengthening the wall and sealing small gaps. Nature helps reinforce the home from within. You imagine lying here during the coldest nights of winter, when temperatures outside might plunge far below anything you have ever experienced. The igloo stands as a barrier against those extremes, holding warmth inside with surprising efficiency. Even so, certain nights require extra attention. Someone might adjust a fur cover, closing a small gap near their shoulder. A parent might gently shift a child to a warmer position or pull an extra hide over them. You let your mind sink deeper into this image. The family sleeps, yet remains loosely connected through warmth. The room breathes through its small ventilation hole. The lamp flickers its soft glow. Everything participates in maintaining comfort. No single force holds the warmth alone. It is the interaction of bodies, materials, design, and gentle nightly habits. You stretch your legs out beneath the hides, feeling how warmth gathers quickly around them. The bedding acts like a reservoir of heat, storing body warmth and returning it slowly across the night. You imagine pressing your feet against someone else's legs, sharing heat without needing to speak. Such contact is natural here, where closeness is both affection and necessity. Your gaze returns to the tunnel entrance. A slight chill rises from it, but the cold is contained. You picture someone waking in the night, listening for changes. Perhaps they hear a faint whistle of air, or notice the lamp flame quiver in a new direction. They rise, barefoot on the warm hides, and glide toward the tunnel to press snow into a tiny gap or shift a block that has sagged a little. Then they return to the platform, pull the covers back over their shoulders, and slip into sleep again. You breathe in, letting warmth settle deeper into your chest. The igloo feels secure now, stable and steady. Everything that needs tending has been tended. The sleeping family breathes softly, each inhalation feeding the air with warmth, each exhalation softening the cold's persistent push. You rest your hand on the bedding and imagine yourself sinking into sleep here, surrounded by others, embraced by warmth, guarded by snow. You understand now that comfort in the Arctic winter is not a static state. It is a living balance, kept alive by gentle instincts passed down through generations. The night inside the igloo continues quietly, and the warmth holds. You sit quietly in the dim amber glow, letting your eyes drift toward the inner curve of the igloo wall. As the night deepens, you begin to notice something delicate forming along the surface. Frost. A faint dusting of tiny white crystals clinging to the curve like a veil of stars. You lean closer, and the crystals catch the lamp's soft light, shimmering in ways that make the dome feel almost celestial. It is as though the room has grown its own sky. You move your fingertips toward the wall, stopping just short of touching the frost. The air near the snow feels slightly cooler. Not sharply cold, but crisp enough to remind you that this structure is constantly balancing warmth and winter. The frost that forms inside an igloo is a natural part of that balance, a quiet dance between breath, heat, and snow. Every exhale from the sleeping bodies adds moisture to the air. That moisture rises, touches the cool dome, and turns into tiny crystals. Frost becomes a nightly companion. A commonly noted aspect of snow house life is that this interior frost layer helps strengthen the structure over time. As more crystals build, the surface becomes smoother and more sealed. The igloo gains a kind of icy armor. You sense that now as you observe the wall. The frost glistens like a thin shield, blending beauty with practicality. But frost does more than beautify the space. It teaches you something about temperature. If you lean close, you feel the subtle difference between the warm air near the platform and the cooler breath resting against the dome. The frost marks that invisible border. You breathe slowly, watching your breath fade into the air before it reaches the wall. The room feels alive with these gentle exchanges. A quieter detail remembered by some elders adds a bit of charm to this nightly phenomenon. Children would sometimes draw small shapes in the frost using the tips of their mittens. Stars, circles, tiny animals. These designs lasted only until the warmth of the lamp or the shifting breath of the family softened them again. The drawings would gradually blur, then vanish, replaced by new frost by morning. It was a fleeting kind of art, made for the moment rather than for memory. You imagine a child leaning close to the wall right now, scribbling a little pattern with sleepy intention. Maybe they draw a fish, or a fox step, or a curved line that resembles the path of the aurora. You picture the soft giggle that follows. The frost blurs. The art becomes part of the night. You tilt your head, noticing how the frost thickens near certain sections of the dome. The areas directly above sleeping bodies collect more moisture. The sections closer to the entrance collect less. The balance is subtle, but visible. You realize that the frost becomes a map of the household itself. The warmest places show the most crystals. The colder sections remain more bare. Not all researchers interpret frost patterns the same way, though. Some believe families understood these patterns clearly and used them to monitor the igloo's internal temperature. Others suggest the frost was simply a natural byproduct that required little thought. The differing interpretations continue to appear in studies, each offering a slightly different view of how people related to this nightly formation. What is undeniable, however, is that frost appears consistently, a quiet reminder of life within this frozen shell. You bring your focus back to the present moment. The room feels peaceful. Frost sparkles above you like tiny constellations. The lamp flame sends gentle waves of light across the curved surface. If you watch closely, you can see the frost crystals shifting almost imperceptibly, responding to the warmth of the air. You place your palm flat on a hide and feel the contrast. Warm fur below, cool frost above. The igloo supports both. A perfect design balancing warmth without melting, cold without freezing the sleepers inside. You marvel at how the snow neither drips nor collapses. Instead, it becomes stronger through the changing temperatures. You shift your eyes downward to the entrance tunnel. faint cold rises from below, but the frost near that area remains thin. The cold air is trapped further down, unable to reach the dome. Everything inside the igloo holds steady. Nothing feels in danger of tipping the balance. The frost continues to grow in soft layers. You notice a cluster forming a delicate arc along the dome's edge. It is shaped like a crescent, thin and elegant. You think of the crescent moon outside, cold and distant. Inside, its reflection seems to have found a place on the snow wall itself. Another gentle thought crosses your mind. Frost inside an igloo might look fragile, but it is not a problem. It never becomes a heavy build-up. The warmth of the lamp and the bodies sleeping below regulate it naturally. If it thickens too much, the heat melts it slightly. If it melts, the surface refreezes, creating a stronger skin. The cycle is constant and stable. You reach out again, letting your hand hover near the dome. The air between your glove and the snow feels like the meeting point of two worlds. The warmth from your body, the cool sleep of the snow. You draw your hand back slowly, feeling the faint drift of warm air against your wrist. You imagine lying down now. Your head would rest beneath the frosted dome. You might watch the crystals grow softly as you drift towards sleep. Their shimmer would be the last thing your eyes catch before closing. The frost becomes part of the lullaby, just as much as the lamp's glow or the sound of slow breathing. The igloo does not hide the cold. It transforms it, reshaping winter into something gentle. Even frost, something you might think of as a sign of chill, becomes a comfort here, a sign that the home is breathing alongside the people inside it. You breathe deeply. The air feels perfect now, warm enough to soften your muscles, cool enough to stay fresh. The frost glitters above you. The night folds in around you. The igloo holds steady. And you feel yourself more deeply rooted in the heart of the Arctic winter, where even ice becomes part of the comfort of sleep. You lift your gaze from the frosted dome and let your attention drift toward the far side of the igloo, where a gentle rustle breaks the stillness. It is not a person stirring. It is a different presence entirely. A soft chuff of breath, a faint shifting of weight. You realize you are not alone with only the sleeping family. Somewhere just beyond the warmest circle, a dog settles into its own spot for the night. You turn your head and catch the outline of a furry shape nestled near the curve of the wall. One of the family's sled dogs has curled itself into a tight ball, nose tucked under its tail, paws hidden beneath thick fur. The animal barely moves except for the slow rise and fall of its breathing. The moment feels almost sacred. The dog, so energetic and tireless during the day, lies completely still now, its presence soft and reassuring. A widely recognized point among Arctic communities is that dogs were far more than working animals. They were companions, protectors, and sometimes sources of warmth. While not every dog slept inside the igloo, those that did were welcomed like additional members of the family. Their bodies added a gentle heat to the room, and their nearness provided a sense of safety that no wall could fully replicate. You watch the dog's breath bloom into tiny puffs of fog, fading before they touch the cold curve of the wall. The creature's fur glistens faintly in the lamplight, revealing layers built to defy the cold. Its ears flick once, responding to a sound only it can hear. Then it relaxes again, reassured that everything within the dome remains calm. Your eyes soften as you take in the quiet bond between people and animals in this frozen world. A small but delightful detail, shared in some oral traditions, describes how children sometimes fell asleep with their feet pressed against a dog's flank, using its warmth like a living blanket. The dogs rarely protested. In winter, warmth is shared freely, whether it comes from a lamp, a hide, or a loyal companion. You imagine a child shifting in their sleep right now, toes brushing the dog's fur. The dog might stir, lift its head for a moment, check that all is well, and then curl itself even tighter, tucking its warmth back into the family circle. The room feels complete with this extra heartbeat inside it. But practices varied. Some communities avoided bringing dogs indoors except during storms or special circumstances. Others welcomed them nightly. Modern researchers continue comparing accounts from elders and explorers, searching for patterns, yet find no single answer. People adapted their habits based on local climate, travel routines, and family personalities. It is another reminder that winter life in the Arctic resists simple categories. You shift slightly on the platform, watching the dog with gentle curiosity. Its fur is thick and layered, designed to withstand temperatures far colder than what the igloo holds now. You imagine running your hand along its back. The fur would feel coarse on the surface but warm and dense underneath. These dogs are born for the world outside, yet they bring their strength into the home when needed. The lamp's glow casts a soft halo around the animal. You notice how its eyes remain half closed, catching only glimmers of light. Dogs here learn the rhythm of the igloo well. They sense when the family is moving, when the lamp needs tending, when someone approaches the entrance. In the quiet moments of the night, they become sentinels disguised as sleepers. You watch as the dog shifts again, adjusting its position with a soft thump of its tail. It stretches one paw, exposing the thick fur between its toes, then curls back into a perfect circle. The warmth rising from the bedding drifts toward it, and the animal sighs deeply, settling into the heat. That sigh feels like a blessing on the room, a shared recognition that inside this dome, every creature can rest. You look at the wall behind the dog. Frost gathers gently there, outlining the animal's shape in a faint shimmer. Its breath adds tiny patches of moisture that glisten before freezing, marking its presence in delicate patterns. Tomorrow, these signs will melt or shift, but for now they form a quiet portrait of companionship. Your thoughts wander to the bond forged between humans and dogs in this landscape. The partnership is ancient, built on trust, loyalty, and shared survival. Out on the tundra, dogs guide sleds across endless ice. Inside the igloo, they bring comfort with their simple nearness. Their warmth is steady, their instincts are sharp, their loyalty is unwavering. You imagine a scenario where harsh winds rise suddenly during the night. The dog would be the first to sense the change, lifting its head, ears pointed, listening for danger. Even half asleep, it would alert the family with a soft growl or a shift in posture. Its presence is a layer of safety that cannot be carved from snow. You feel something warm settle inside your chest as you watch the animal continue its slow breathing. It sleeps without fear. It trusts the home, the people, the warmth, and in doing so, it invites you to trust the night as well. The lamp flickers once more, sending a ripple of golden light across the sleeping bodies. The dog's fur glows with the shimmer of firelight, its tail curled like a small crescent moon against the bedding. You realize how integral this creature is to the picture of Arctic life. Even in the stillness, it brings a quiet energy that settles gently into the room. You close your eyes for a moment, listening. The dog's faint breaths blend with the soft breathing of the family. Together they create a single rhythm, peaceful and steady, a rhythm that carries everyone through the deep winter night. The igloo feels fuller now, warmer, more alive. With this animal curled in its familiar place, the room holds the final element of comfort. Humans, fire, furs, snow, and the steady warmth of a faithful companion. Everything inside the dome breathes as one. You sit quietly, letting your breath settle into the calm rhythm of the igloo when your eyes drift toward the low tunnel entrance. The passage looks darker now than it did before, a quiet gap carved into the snow, half in shadow and half touched by the soft flicker of the lamp. The tunnel feels like a boundary that separates two entire worlds, warmth on one side, the endless Arctic night on the other, and yet the connection between those worlds must be checked through the night. You watch as one of the adults stirs, rising from the bedding with practiced quiet. They move without hurry, as though this moment is woven into their instincts. You feel the change in the room as they stand. The hides shift slightly. A low sigh of air follows their movement. They gather a piece of fur around their shoulders, and step toward the tunnel with a soft shuffle across the snow platform. You sense that this is not a chore but a natural part of keeping the home alive through the long winter. In accounts gathered from northern families over many years, it is often mentioned that someone would periodically check the tunnel during the night to make sure drifting snow had not blocked it. This task did not require waking the entire household. It was carried out quietly, often by the lightest sleeper or the person most attuned to changes in airflow. As you watch the figure move, you realize how effortless the action seems. They do not fumble. They do not hesitate. They simply listen to the igloo and respond to what it needs. You lean forward slightly as they crouch beside the opening, their back outlined by the soft glow of the lamp. They lower themselves onto hands and knees, pausing for a moment before entering the tunnel. You imagine what they must sense: the temperature difference, the whisper of cold creeping upward, the faint vibration of wind pressing against the outside drift. The tunnel amplifies these clues just enough to guide the night check. The person crawls partway into the entrance, disappearing into the dim curve. You hear only the muted sound of snow shifting under their weight, then a soft brushing sound, the gentle rhythm of a hand smoothing loose crystals from the inner wall. The movement is deliberate and calm, almost meditative. They work by touch rather than sight, feeling where the snow has drifted or where the tunnel has narrowed. A subtle but memorable detail shared in some communities describes how people would place small markers near the tunnel floor, such as a rounded pebble or a carved sliver of bone, to help measure how much snow had accumulated during the night. If the marker rose too high, buried under a fresh drift, someone would clear the entrance to prevent the cold from creeping upward. You imagine such a marker now, half hidden under the loose snow, waiting to reveal the tunnel's condition with quiet honesty. You glance around the igloo as the person continues checking. The room remains peaceful. The other sleepers barely stir. Even the dog lifts only its head before relaxing again. This nighttime inspection does not break the calm. It enhances it. The knowledge that someone is tending the entrance gives the room a deeper sense of safety. Not all accounts agree on how often these checks occurred. Some reports collected from elders recall nightly inspections during stormy periods, while others suggest that checks were only necessary during particularly windy nights or after hearing a shift in the snow outside. Scholars examining these stories still discuss how much of this variation comes from regional habits and how much comes from individual family preference. But whether frequent or occasional, the nightly check remains a recognizable part of winter life across many traditions. You look toward the tunnel as the figure begins backing out. Snow dust falls from their shoulders as they return to the warm chamber. Their breath makes soft clouds in the cooler air near the passage. When they straighten, you notice the calm on their face. The check is complete. The entrance is safe. The igloo breathes normally again. They use a small tool carved from bone to scrape a bit of loose snow from the top of the tunnel lip, then pat it gently with their palm to restore the shape. The motion is steady and controlled, preserving the tunnel's curve. With the last adjustment made, they pull the fur wrap closer around their shoulders and return to the platform. You watch as they slip under the hides with the grace of someone who has performed this task countless times. Their movements barely disturb the others. The fur rises and settles over their body, hiding them completely except for a small tuft of hair visible near the top. Soon their breathing merges with the quiet chorus of the sleeping family. Your attention returns to the tunnel. Even after the figure has settled into sleep, you feel its presence more vividly now. The entrance is both vulnerable and essential. It lets in air but must be protected from drift. It allows escape if needed, but also invites the outside cold. Every person inside the igloo places trust in its stability, yet they also carry responsibility for keeping it safe. You lean a bit closer, letting your senses reach toward the dark passage. The cold from below rises faintly but stops just short of where you sit. You picture the tunnel from within. The snow walls pressed smooth by hands, the floor packed down by repeated crawling, the cold nestled at the bottom like a sleeping animal. Above it, the warm air you breathe remains untouched. Your fingertips brush the bedding, grounding you in the warmth of the room. Around you, the igloo's quiet hum continues. The lamp flickers softly. The frost sparkles faintly on the wall. The dog shifts in its sleep. Everything feels balanced, supported, alive. You imagine lying here during a storm when snow builds quickly outside. You picture someone waking just enough to hear the difference in the wind. The sound might be deeper, heavier, pressing harder against the dome. They would rise, check the tunnel, clear the drift, and return to bed. A small action but essential. A nightly conversation between humans and snow. You stretch your legs slightly, feeling the hides cradle your movement. Warmth spreads around you in gentle waves. The calm of the igloo feels stronger now that you have witnessed this quiet ritual of protection. There is something deeply comforting about knowing the tunnel is tended, that someone is always aware of the world beyond the walls even as others sleep. You take a final look at the entrance. The darkness inside remains soft and undisturbed. No unwelcome drafts. No threatening chill. Just the silent promise that the igloo continues to hold its warmth. You feel your breath deepen, your shoulders relax, your mind settle. This is how a winter home survives the night, through smooth architecture, through shared warmth, through instincts carried across generations, and through the simple act of checking the tunnel in the quiet hours, listening to the snow, and trusting the knowledge held by those who came before. The igloo rests, and so, now, do you. You ease yourself deeper into the bedding, letting the warmth settle around your hips as your gaze drifts once more toward the quiet glow of the quillick. The lamp has been burning steadily for hours now, a small flame with a surprisingly powerful presence. Its gentle light fills the igloo with a golden softness that seems to soothe not only the air, but your thoughts. Yet the lamp is not something that can simply be left alone. Like everything else in this frozen world, it requires gentle attention through the night. You shift slightly, watching as one of the adults stirs again, not fully awake, but not entirely asleep. They lift their head, listening. Then, as if answering a silent request from the flame itself, they rise slowly and move toward the lamp with a quiet, practiced ease. You follow their movement with your eyes, feeling the room's calm deepen rather than break. It is widely understood among Arctic households that the quillick was both a source of heat and a symbol of stability. As long as the flame remained steady, the night remained safe. You can see that truth now as the adult kneels beside the lamp. The flame is small and clear, but the wick has shortened slightly. A quiet adjustment is needed. Nothing dramatic, just a careful, tender touch. They reach for a small tool carved from bone, used specifically for tending the wick. With slow precision, they lift a portion of the moss wick and trim its charred edge, creating a smooth surface that will burn evenly. A tiny puff of smoke escapes, twisting into the air before fading completely. The flame brightens and steadies. The entire igloo seems to glow a little more warmly. A lesser-known detail passed down through some families describes how people listened for a faint clicking sound in the lamp to know when it needed tending. The click came from uneven burning or small disturbances in the wick. You picture someone half asleep, hearing that gentle signal, rising to adjust the flame without ever fully waking. A quiet rhythm shaped by years of practice. You watch the adult smooth the surface of the lamp's oil with the edge of their tool, guiding the fat toward the wick so it will burn cleanly. They move with almost ceremonial grace. Their shadow stretches upward, long and soft, curving along the snow wall like a living brushstroke. No sound breaks the calm except the faint whisper of the flame. Yet not all accounts of lamp care agree on the exact techniques used across different regions. Some descriptions portray people tending the wick often, maintaining a bright flame all night. Others suggest that a low, steady flame was preferred, with minimal adjustments made during sleep. Researchers comparing these recollections still discuss how climate, oil availability, or personal habits shape these nightly routines. But the heart of the practice remains constant. The waxed calm of the room depends on tending the flame with respect. You breathe in gently and catch the scent of newly warmed oil drifting through the room. The fragrance is richer now, softer at the edges. The lamp's heat gathers above it, lifting tiny waves of warmth that ripple through the air. You feel one brush lightly against your cheek, a reminder that even a single flame can transform the coldest season into something livable. The adult shifts slightly, cupping their hand to shelter the flame as they adjust the wick one final time. The gesture is instinctive, a hand shaped like a small shield, protecting the fragile light. Once satisfied, they lower the tool onto the snow shelf and rise slowly. Their shadow shrinks back into the warm glow as they return to the bedding. The flame steadies again, casting a quiet golden aura across the platform. It feels like the igloo has exhaled, a collective breath of reassurance. You sense the dog relax in its curl. The sleepers shift closer together. Even the frost on the walls brightens a little in the warmth. You lean closer to the lamp now, studying its simple beauty. A shallow stone bowl filled with rendered seal fat. A wick made of moss, gathered and dried during warmer seasons. A flame that burns with surprising clarity, shaped not by luxury, but by necessity. Yet there is something almost spiritual about it. The lamp feels like a small sun captured inside a world of snow. Your thoughts drift to how deeply woven the lamp's presence is in the memory of Arctic life. It cooked food, warmed hands, dried clothing, soothed children, and lit the darkness. It offered comfort in nights where the sun would not rise for weeks. Its flame shaped the rhythm of the winter home. You imagine lying down on the platform now, your head resting on a folded hide, your eyes drawn to the soft dance of the flame. It moves slowly, as if tired from the long day. The light washes gently across the dome, touching the frost with a delicate shimmer. You feel your mind soften as you watch. Someone nearby turns under the furs, pulling the blanket closer. The lamp responds with a slight shift of its flame as the airflow changes. You notice this small interaction and smile quietly. Everything in the igloo listens to everything else. Fire listens to breath. Snow listens to warmth. Hides listen to bodies settling into rest. The adult who tended the lamp is already half asleep again, their breath blending into the quiet of the room. The flame steadies once more, neither too bright nor too weak, just enough to keep the air warm and the shadows gentle. You let your hand rest on the platform, feeling the warmth that radiates through the bedding. The room feels complete again, balanced, held together by care, by habit, by centuries of knowledge passed through quiet hands. The lamp's glow washes over you, soft as a memory. You breathe in. You feel your eyelids grow heavier. The warmth, the silence, the careful tending of the flame all draw you closer to the drowsy heart of the night. Inside this snow dome, a single flame guides the entire rhythm of sleep. You lie back slightly, letting the warmth of the hides settle into your spine, and your eyes drift upward toward the frost speckling the dome. The igloo has become so calm now that the faint pulse of the lamp seems to set the rhythm for everything inside it. Breathing, shadows, silence. All of it moves in a slow, gentle pattern that carries you toward the edge of sleep, and as your mind begins to loosen, you sense another presence entering the night. Not a person, not an animal, something quieter, the sound of distant wind. It is not loud, not even close. Instead, it arrives like a faraway murmur, a voice so faint you might miss it if you were not already drifting. The wind presses lightly against the igloo from the outside, turning the dome into a soft instrument. The snow carries the vibration inward, smoothing it, rounding it, transforming it into the gentlest hum. You close your eyes and hear it, the Arctic's quiet lullaby. Across many northern communities, people have long spoken about how the wind influences the dreams that unfold during winter nights. Strong winds were said to bring restless dreams. Gentle winds invited calmer ones. You can feel the truth of that now. The wind tonight is steady and mild, brushing along the outer curve of the dome in a rhythm that almost feels like breath. It whispers rather than howls. It hums rather than roars. You feel your mind easing deeper as you listen. You exhale slowly. The warmth of your breath rises and mingles with the soft glow of the lamp. For a moment, the two sensations blend into a single wave that sweeps through your chest. The frost above you sparkles faintly, reflecting the light like a constellation captured within the snow. It feels strange and beautiful to watch the inside of a home shimmer like a night sky. A quieter, more intimate detail shared by some elders drifts into your memory. During the coldest nights, when the wind's voice grew clearer, children sometimes whispered to it before falling asleep. Not loud enough to wake anyone, just soft little words offered into the darkness. Perhaps they believed the wind carried their thoughts across the land. Perhaps it simply soothed them. You picture a child curled beneath the hides, whispering a small wish or a tiny thought into the air, then drifting off before the sentence even finishes. You inhale again, letting the sound of the wind guide your thoughts. It makes the igloo feel like a cocoon floating inside a vast and living world. The snow muffles the cold, but not the story the wind tells. The dome becomes a translator, turning the Arctic's wild energy into something soft enough to dream by. Not every account agrees on how people interpreted these sounds. Some researchers argue the wind had no special meaning beyond weather prediction. Others believe families wove it into their storytelling traditions, giving it a presence in both waking life and dreams. The question remains open, shaped by the memories of elders and the wide landscapes of the north. As you listen now, it becomes easy to understand why interpretations differ. The wind can be both ordinary and enchanting, depending on the night. You shift under the hides, feeling how the warm bedding cradles your body as the sound of the wind draws your thoughts into softer shapes. The lamp glows nearby, its flame swaying just slightly as air currents pass through the room. You watch it blink once, then return to its steady dance. Every movement seems to echo the rhythm of drifting thoughts. You close your eyes again